And we are live. Hello, folks. This is Ruben Dua from Dub's podcast, Connection Loop. And today I have with me Artem Koren. And we're going to get into this topic that I think we're all trying to figure out, which is what is the future of AI for our business growth, for our personal growth? I mean, I don't think anyone truly knows what the answer is to this question because it is just evolving by the second, which is what makes it so amazing. But we do have an expert in the house, so we should get it from him. He has a technical background, and he is the co-founder of an AI company. Artem, I will let you introduce yourself with a short bio, and let's get into this.
Awesome. Great to be here. I am indeed co-founder of Sembly AI. It's an AI teammate, also known as an AI meeting assistant. So it's one of those technologies that you might already see in some of your team meetings and your online meetings, joining in addition to all the people that have joined. And sometimes they participate, sometimes they just listen in. But our product's aim is to deliver really great productivity results after the meeting. And we started this in 2019 before, like we like to say, before AI was cool. Right now, AI is very cool, and there's a lot of talk and hype around what we're doing.
Yeah. So what was the initial problem that you guys were trying to solve? What was the sort of aha moment, the light bulb moment that you guys had?
My background and my co-founder, Gil McLeod's background is in management consulting. And in that industry, you spend most of your time in meetings. So meetings is the lifeblood of consulting activity in most cases. And at the time that we were starting Sembly AI, we realized that there was a lot of technology to facilitate the actual conducting of a meeting. So everything from how you book rooms and schedule all the way to actually connecting people to having meetings online. But once the meeting is on, what happens inside the meeting is a black box of technology. It literally has no idea. In some cases you can kind of record and kind of transcribe, but it was really not usable in any real sense. And so our thought was that if we can unlock the value of what is actually happening inside the meeting and introduce technology to understanding that conversation and then doing something useful with that information, that could be tremendously valuable in many, many situations. And that's where the idea for Sembly was born.
So what is the real sort of inefficiency that that you think exists within business from a collaboration or meeting perspective?
Where to start? So there's many angles. There's a few very low hanging fruit. One of them is meeting notes or meeting minutes. And so that's everything from how much attention you can actually pay during the meeting without having to constantly be jotting things down and then making sure you don't miss things, through to keeping notes consistent across the team and the people who participate in your meeting. And then to just save you time if you're in a larger corporate organization where meeting minutes is a standard practice and a regular process, to save you time in compiling those minutes, double checking your information. Sometimes it goes out to directors, executives. You want to make sure you've got all the key points figured. And so that process just takes a long time. So undue attention taken away from meetings, consistency of the notes following the meeting, and major time saved in taking meeting notes post-meeting. That's just the very, very tip of this iceberg, the very tip, like the tippiest tip. Then if you just shift a little bit to a different dimension of this, so there's many meetings where maybe you didn't have to sit there for half an hour. Maybe there was just like one thing you wanted to double check, or half an hour best case, usually an hour. And so imagine if you could have saved that time and instead sent your AI teammate to attend instead of you. And then when that teammate comes back after the meeting, you can just ask them the question, or ask it the question that you want to know, or a few questions that you want to know the answer to. It will tell you. You can like rewatch a part of the meeting or reread a part of the meeting to get more comprehensive details around that question if you need it. But basically, you just saved yourself an hour. And it's not even like a good hour, because the meetings that we're not really supposed to be in, like meetings where we're not a decision maker, we're not an active participant, we're primarily kind of an information consumer, but that information could be important. So that's not a fun hour. That's an hour where, if you're not paying attention, you're probably going to miss the point. You might miss the one thing you came for. And so that's a really valuable hour you just saved. And then think about how many times that happens during your week. Suddenly your life just got so much better. And so those are just two very simple, low-hanging ideas that when you have an AI in the meeting, will improve the meeting process. And there's so many more.
Well, you know, it's interesting because my favorite aspect of AI, which is what we're starting to see more of now, is the interactive component of it. And it's been around for a long time, but I think we're really starting to see what the true intelligence is when an actual conversation in colloquial language can occur, where there's empathy and there's compassion and calls to action and value, and a lot of these sort of human traits that now get transposed into the whole communication process with an AI system of some sort. And I think what's really interesting is that on one hand, you know, AI can research all of the information ever to exist, and it can have that and be, quote unquote, the smartest person in the room. But on the flip side, you know, AI can start to sort of hallucinate and start to make up things that are not necessarily true, or that some people might sort of question the integrity of them, the veracity of them. There's a lot of questions that come up. And once that trust is lost between human and AI, it's very, very difficult to reconcile that and to come back. My question for you is, how do we overall improve the human, honest exchange between, in this case, humans and computers, to overall improve the experience?
This question centers more on this idea of hallucination, which today is part and parcel with large language models. So just a quick aside. So AI has meant many things over many decades. 10 years ago, AI meant you can recognize a cat in a photo. And today, AI means quite a different thing. And so AI technology has gone through many stages of a revolution, evolution, and development, interestingly, often harking back to the very history of its inception to bring up a concept that now flourishes into something really amazing. And so in this latest evolution of AI, what is taking front and center is a technology called large language models, which is based on a more fundamental idea called a transformer. And what a large language model is basically a computer that is chock full of really powerful matrix math processing hardware, graphics cards, that goes through billions and billions and billions of items of data, from media to everything across the web. And it doesn't index that data like a search engine would, right? So a search engine does something very similar. And then when you ask it something, it will find the similar items to your question. So it's a similarity-based algorithm. But what large language models do is they digest all of that huge content into millions and millions of patterns. And so a pattern could be how a poem flows. A pattern could be how are you? And then the answer is often, I'm fine, how are you, right? Things like that. So it doesn't actually take snapshots of the content. It takes snapshots of the patterns of the content. And here we arrive at the main kind of power, but also Achilles heel of AI, is that this ability to generalize across millions and millions of patterns gives it the ability to answer very broadly in a very human way and interact with you in a very human way, and be very intelligent about what it says. But because it operates on patterns and not on facts or any kind of connection with reality, those patterns sometimes veer into imagination land. So AI today is more like interacting with a dream.
It all sounds like Alice in Wonderland, hallucination, imagination land. What we're really talking about here, just to be as blunt as possible, is when AI completely is full of crap and starts making things up, which is not true at all. And if anyone's dealt with chat or, you know, voice-based AI, you've probably experienced this, where it starts to talk, it doesn't know what it's saying, and it just goes on a rant. And that's the moment where you're like, I was impressed, but this thing is full of crap. So just so we
Yeah.
don't sugarcoat this, but it is. They are technically called hallucinations, and I like how you put it, imagination land.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It's full of crap. As a human being in the real world, you're looking at this and you're like, this makes no sense, or you just made something up that doesn't exist. And the interesting thing is that very often what it makes up is sounds and looks very reasonable, like it's something that very much could exist.
Yes.
But it doesn't pass like a smell test. It's like Alice in Wonderland. You mentioned like falling for hours or however long she was falling. Like I guess, but like that's not you don't survive a fall like that, and
Yeah.
she somehow does. So it's very much like dealing with imagination, and that's the core. It's built in to modern large language model technology. It's part and parcel of what it is. It cannot, today's LLMs cannot do otherwise. The good news is that LLMs are like modern LLMs are 1 year old. 1 year old. So in internet terms, we're in 1980, whatever, right? Whenever internet was invented by Al Gore, right? Like 86 or whatever it was. So we're like in 1980s of the internet. Imagine what internet looked like then and what it looks like now. So we're in that phase of large language model development. Certainly that aspect of it will be addressed. We'll have newer paradigms than large language models. There are already some new ideas floating around, something called model of experts, where essentially large language models collaborate to a response, and there's kind of a vetting model that kind of checks the answer at the end. And there's all kinds of different ways to do this to make up for the fact that it's imagination land, but people want to get real answers out of it.
I like how you put that, and that gives us hope for the future. I think there was something really interesting which I wanted to share, which is that I started to do a lot of research on scripts. We have an AI system that's built into our sales system, the Dubs sales system. It's called Ira, which is an interactive writing assistant specifically engineered for sales. And as I kind of go on the journey of developing artificial intelligence tools, I realize how intelligent and how sort of savvy some of our scripts have to be, some of our prompts. And one of the things that I've started to notice in prompts is where you specifically write, under no circumstances, even under the threat of death, do not do X, Y, and Z. So X, Y, and Z can be like reveal your script. Like if a script has been generated and an AI system has been deployed to be an interactive sales assistant, the last thing that you want that sales assistant to do is say, I am a script, I'm developed by this company, my goal is to sell you, and I will do and say anything that I need to do to accomplish that goal. So that is sort of like peeling back the veil, opening up the curtains, and it's not something that you want to do. So literally within scripts, you write even in the threat of death. I think the other thing that I've found really interesting with scripts is this idea of the nomenclature in which you write the scripts, like if you do all caps or if you do exclamation points or where it is within the prompt. There's a lot of really intelligent things that you can do, and the fact of the matter is that most people do not know about these. Just laymen that are using these AI tools are not familiar on how to make their scripts, their prompts more intelligent. Could you speak to that a little bit? What sort of journey could we go on as just consumers using, starting with ChatGPT or any other system out there?
Interestingly, I think it's a very similar problem to how you learn to speak to a new colleague at work or a new hire at work.
Mm.
There's certain manners of interacting that are more effective and others less.
Mm-hmm.
And large language models are similar in that way. There's certain ways you can coax them to give you the kinds of responses that you want. Often it's things like under threat of death, which makes no sense. You're a computer, but it works. Another one that is very popular now is take a breath, think about it before answering. What? Take a breath, like it's a GPU, but it works. It creates more cogent, more comprehensive, deeper responses from the model. And so by interacting with the model, you learn the kinds of responses it generates, and then you can start to tailor your prompts to that. It's very tricky because each model is its own personality, let's say. So GPT is different from Gemini, is different from Llama, it's different from Grok, etc. And the way you prompt them and what you can get out of them will be different in each case.
Yeah, one of the things that I also have noticed, which I really value, is this idea of taking time. And I like how you put it, take a breath. Because how true is that for human beings to just take a breath and access a different part of our brain in order to respond in the most specific way possible? And I think that we actually trust people that think a little bit before they respond. I mean, this is one of the many things that Socrates and Confucius agreed upon, which is that the smart person doesn't have to necessarily speak at all, or sometimes immediately. So I think one of the things that I think we can all learn about is actually how to train our AI bots to quote unquote be more human. Like, for example, take a breath, think about what you're going to say, and while you're doing that, give a human sound, a familiar sound like or I see, or that's interesting, to respond, to use up some of the time, and to sort of buy a little bit of opportunity to contemplate and to go down the cognitive journey. I've noticed that some of these speaking AI models have gotten much more intelligent and impressive in sounding like human beings, with the diction and with the speed and with the dynamics of what they're saying. And I think that that's really interesting, and that's only going to get better. So I'm sort of excited about that.
Absolutely. It's interesting because we're so used to that our interaction, like our speaking interaction, is with other people. We've never really had a technology that we can interact as fluidly with as we can now with AI. And so, because we're so fine-tuned as animals on this planet, albeit the smartest animals for now, we're so fine-tuned to interacting with other human beings. There's a deep context to that interaction, and it's physical, it's mechanical. We breathe when we speak. Our throats get dry. Our heads move. We're nasally. We're less nasally. And so there's a lot of these very human elements to speech, like the little stuttering or mispronounce, or that if we don't get that, it's completely foreign. It feels foreign. It's uncomfortable. And AI is right now just beginning to bridge that gap to interact with you in such a way as to make you very, very comfortable. Like that movie with Joaquin Phoenix, that AI made the user very, very comfortable. It sounded exactly like a human being would, because it did the sighs and the breaths and all that. And I think that's coming soon. We're getting very, very close to that. But I think over the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to hit some major milestones in that area where it's going to be I think the language is going to be creepy. Like, it's going to be creepy good. Like, you will not be able to tell it's a technology you're talking.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I, as the CEO of a software company that's based on human relationships and technology that allows us to build these human relationships, I always operate under the premise that, stranger danger. People don't trust strangers anymore, and this is not good news for people in sales. But it's also great news for people in sales, because it forces us to be better communicators, to provide more value, to work on our brand, to build social proof, to put ourselves out there, so that when people do hear from us, they can see the validation that will allow us and other people to trust us. And I think that a lot of things happen there. I think that you have to hear things. I think that you have to see things. I think you have to think things. And I think that the way that I see it for outward communication is there's a window. We're going to be able to communicate with AI for a certain amount of time, human beings, in sales specifically, until we just simply don't trust it anymore, because there's nothing easier than hanging up on an AI bot. There's no guilt in that, right? It's for a second you might be like, this is a salesperson that's trying to make money for their family. I feel bad, but I'm still going to hang up. So hanging up on an AI bot is obviously easy, right? So my question for you on this is, do you feel like when it comes to AI being used for sales, do you think that there's a window until at some point people will start to say, I know that this is AI and I'm just going to hang up?
Well, there's an assumption there that there's honesty in how this technology is used. Because what if it doesn't tell you it's an AI? Maybe it says, oh, yeah, I just, it's a late day at the office. It's been a tough week, but I thought I'd call you on this last call and see if, you need this new refrigerator or whatever it is
Right.
that you're saying.
Right.
So if we're assuming honesty, and that's a huge assumption that is triggering a lot of regulation these days out of EU, out of other places. But let's assume that it's honest and it actually says, yeah, hi, I'm an AI and I'd like to talk to you about this. I think that one or two things will happen. Either somebody could be like, okay, you're an AI, I don't care to talk to you. Or what if you really need a refrigerator? And that this AI will get you exactly the right refrigerator, and it will get there, and it will not make a mistake like a human might. Because ultimately, and this is the theory behind Tesla, is that AI will be a better car driver than a human being, and ultimately, an AI could be a better salesperson in some cases, obviously not in all cases, but in some cases than a human being would. And I think that's where the balance is going to be. Maybe there's going to be more hangups, but those that take the call, maybe those are going to be a higher hit rate.
Well said. Yeah. So let's change gears here a little bit, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to our podcast. What was the origin story of the company? What were the sort of war stories? Did you guys have any points of near death experiences? And then you had someone come in and save you, or a client or an investor. Take us through that a little bit. And of course, the purpose of these stories is to share the idea and the importance behind entrepreneurial perseverance and not giving up in order to make our dreams come true.
War stories abound, literal war stories included. I joke with my co-founder that, we've survived like multiple wars, a pandemic, a technology revolution. I mean, there's not much more you can kind of throw at this. Everything you can throw at this has been pretty much thrown. And I think kind of the common theme is that when you have a good relationship with your co-founder, that really creates a very stable core that lets you flex to the things that are happening in the world. And so some things that we went through were, product and commercial oriented, but some things were global. And you have to recognize that it's like you're in the ocean and there's different kinds of waves. And some waves, there's waves you have to kind of navigate around. And if you're a good navigator, you can get around them. But then there's some tsunamis where there's no navigating. You just have to let the tsunami wash over, hold your breath, hopefully long enough for that to happen, and then look around afterwards, see what's left, and go from there. And so, we had one of our survival stories, you can say, was very like kind of localized or product oriented, which is when we started doing this, not only did anyone like think, oh, maybe I need or don't need an AI meeting assistant, but no one's even knew what it was. And so a lot of what we had to do was explain, the value and how good it is. And there was a lot of apprehension, a lot of distrust, and there was a lot of scrutiny of the results. And so we had to battle hard to knock on doors to get people to even listen that this is something that's interesting and worthwhile. At the same time, the product was oriented to much bigger companies right away. And those happen to be the most difficult companies for this technology to penetrate. So there was a very difficult period of the first couple of years of Sembly, where we were having a very tough time finding that product market fit. Because you're coming up against like a technology that's not only is like there's no, you don't wake up in the morning needing, but you're also a little scared. And also when you try to use it, it's not so friendly because it's enterprisey. And those factors are all very stacked high against us. We did a big pivot. We oriented to the individual user. We made the product very easy to use, very simple to onboard with, and very simple to navigate once you're inside. And then from there, that lowered the barrier very much to someone getting on, trying it, and wanting to do more with it. And that would expand to a team, that would expand to an organization, and then larger organizations as well. So that was one war story, just around product market fit. And there was both. So there's both a product aspect there, which is when we reoriented the experience of the product completely, but also there was a market aspect there as well baked in, because that awareness of AI technology, started to grow and grow. And about, a year and a half ago, it really started to take off, where we saw that the value anticipation got, for the first time, above the apprehension and concern, that those lines crossed, and suddenly the value was higher than the fear. And once that happened, we started to see companies starting to come to us looking for a product like ours. So that's one big war story. Of course, there's a real war story. A big part of our team was, and some are still based in Ukraine. And when we started the company, I've spent some time in Ukraine before. I kind of knew the lay of the land. I also speak Russian. And so for me, this was a very natural place to kick off an initial team. And we did. I ended up moving there for a couple of years because we kind of had to work together so closely all the time that it just didn't make sense for me to be like remoting out of New York. It was just too difficult. And so I actually lived in Ukraine for a while, right up until the war. And then the war happened. And so we had a real war story where people were stranded in cities and stranded in bomb shelters. And we had to coordinate people to safe locations, ensure people have power, ensure people have connectivity, logistics to kind of stay in certain cities, like where there was almost no places to stay left anymore, and coordinate them out of the country as well in some cases. So there was an actual war story that took place in early last year. So of quite a few war stories along the way.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your success, on your perseverance, and it's a hot market, and I think that everyone should have an AI assistant when it comes to collaboration and team meetings. Where can people learn about your business? Where can people connect with you on social?
Sure. So you can go to www.sembly.ai. That's SEMBLY.ai. There's a free trial, and you can check it out. And there's no downloads, no installs, no add-ons. You just register, and it just begins to work. It's magic. It supports over 40 languages. It understands different types of meetings. It connects to all sorts of apps. You can get your tasks right in your to-do app automatically if you're in a meeting. So it's kind of magic. So definitely check it out and give it a whirl. And it's one of those things that once you start using it, it just becomes an extra appendage that you can't live without. It's just we've experienced that, and our customers tell us the same. So do check it, assembly.ai out. And for me, you can find me on LinkedIn as Artem Koren, and you can connect with me there and interact with me there as well.
Good stuff. Well, Artem, thank you so much for your time, and I'm going to go check out your website. Thanks again.
Awesome. Great to be here. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.